Why does every Batman casting announcement turn into a civil war online? Every single time it's the same thing. Fans argue, they jump with excitement, they debate, create online threads where they talk about who it should have been, why it's great that it's this person, why it's terrible, etc. And while this panic and celebration, they're both interesting to observe from the outside looking in, I don't think they're really arguing about actors. I think they're arguing about something much more difficult to grasp. The fact that Batman might be the single most difficult role in Hollywood to cast. Not the most powerful, maybe not even the most iconic, the most difficult. And as an actor, the thing that fascinates me most about the role of Batman isn't necessarily the character, although it is a very fascinating character. It's the challenges from an acting perspective that playing Batman presents. You see, most roles ask an actor to perform well and excel in maybe one or two areas. Batman asks for everything. Physicality, presence, emotional depth, action capability, voice work, dual identities. And somehow all of those things have to fit neatly inside of one performance. The truth is, Batman isn't just one role. He's multiple roles stacked on top of each other. And that's precisely why finding the right actor is so difficult. So today, I want to talk about why Batman is one of the most demanding roles in modern cinema, and why we appreciate a great Batman performance more when we understand what's being asked of the actor. The first challenge is surprisingly simple. Batman isn't one character. He's two. You see, a Bruce Wayne is charming, polished, socially functional, very public. Batman is emotionally guarded, secretive, obsessive, intimidating. As an actor, that's already a gargantuan challenge. Usually you're trying to create one cohesive performance. With Batman, though, you're creating two distinct personas and convincing the audience that they're manifestations of the same individual. That's not easy, because Bruce Wayne can't feel like Batman without the mask, and Batman can't just feel like Bruce Wayne with the mask. Both identities need their own language, rhythm, energy, yet they still have to feel connected. You have to believe that the same man can become both. And every actor approaches this differently. Some people approach it as Bruce Wayne is the mask, and some as Batman is the mask. But however you do it, the balance is delicate. And if either side of the scale fails, the whole illusion falls apart. The next challenge is the one that everyone talks about: the physique. And while it may seem superficial, it's actually very important. Batman is one of the few superheroes whose physical presence is central to the fantasy. When Batman enters a room, people should notice. When he encounters criminals, they should be immediately intimidated by his sheer presence alone. There should be an immediate sense of danger for those who try to oppose him. Now, this doesn't mean that he needs to be the biggest guy alive, but he does need to look strong, capable, disciplined, powerful, intimidating. But Batman isn't just a bodybuilder, so it's not just about the mass, although that's important. He's also a martial artist, a detective, a tactician, an acrobat. So the ideal Batman physique isn't just huge and hulking, it's functional. The actor has to project strength while also looking like somebody who's honed their skills through years of combat experience. And that balance is more difficult than it sounds, because audiences instinctively know when someone looks like Batman and when they don't. But beyond the physical, when you step outside of just the body and go one layer extra, this is the part that a lot of people don't really talk about. The Batman suit makes acting harder, and not just by a little bit, like a lot. The cowl covers most of your face. The cape changes your posture. The suit is rigid and makes it very difficult to move. It limits your flexibility and mobility. Suddenly, communication through subtle facial expressions is dramatically reduced, which is very difficult for an actor, particularly in film, because that's what we're taught to do. And normally you have access to every tool in the toolbox. Your eyes, your face, your mouth, your posture, your hands, all of your expressions. But Batman strips most of those away. Now every movement matters. Every glance matters. Every tilt of the head, every smirk of the mouth, every tiny detail, everything becomes economical. You must be efficient with your acting so that you can convey what you're trying to communicate. Those minute details suddenly carry enormous weight because of the limitations of the Batman suit. And when actors do this well, audiences often don't even realize how much work is going on beneath the surface. And if those two things weren't difficult enough, then you have the voice. This actually might be Batman's most unique challenge. Most superheroes sound like themselves, whether they're masked or unmasked. Batman doesn't, or rather, can't. Bruce Wayne is the most famous man in the world. If people heard him talking like he normally does, they would instantly recognize it. You can't have that. And because of that, along with long-standing traditions, suddenly audiences expect transformation. The actor as Batman has to sound intimidating and distinct from Bruce Wayne. It's gotta be memorable, but also believable. And that's an incredibly narrow target. Too normal and it doesn't feel like Batman. Too over the top and you start laughing and it takes you out of the experience altogether. Finding that middle ground is really tough because it doesn't just have to work in certain scenes, it has to work in all of them. Action scenes, interrogations, quiet conversations, emotional moments, exposition, everything. The actor essentially has to invent a second vocal performance, and it has to work and be consistent throughout the entire movie. That is a very difficult balancing act that I'm not sure most people could actually pull off. The next challenge is the fact that not every dramatic actor is an action star, and not every action star is a dramatic actor. In the modern era, those things have begun to blend together because dramatic actors want to do action movies and action stars want to do dramatic films. And largely over the course of the last 20 years or so, the superhero genre has become less and less of its own genre and more of just films that have superheroes in them, which is a good thing. But Batman can't just be dramatic and can't just be action. He has to be both. The audience wants to believe the combat, the movement, the physicality, but they also want the emotional complexity, trauma, pain, isolation, growth. The actor has to convincingly perform fight choreography one day and an incredibly emotional scene the next. That's asking for an unusually broad skill set, and it's one of the reasons why the casting pool becomes incredibly small. There just simply aren't that many performers capable of doing both at a high level. But assuming you clear all of those hurdles, this is where the role becomes, I think, truly difficult, from not only an actor's perspective, but also writing and directing. Batman operates on two different levels. To criminals, he's a creature of the night, a force of nature, a nightmare lurking in the shadows. But to the audience who sees behind the mask, he's a human being with real emotional complexity. He's a wounded child who's still trying to figure out how to overcome the emotional devastation of the tragedy of his parents' death, while simultaneously bearing this enormous moral weight to be the symbol that he thinks he needs to be. Both of those individually can be very tough, but the actor has to embody both of those at once. We need to believe that he can terrify a room of criminals, but we also have to believe him when he sits alone at night questioning everything. Too much myth and he becomes emotionally distant. Too much vulnerability and he loses his larger-than-life presence. That balance is incredibly delicate, yet every great Batman finds it, and when they do, the character comes alive. To illustrate the difficulty of playing the role of Batman, I want to compare and contrast him to some other iconic characters. James Bond needs charisma, confidence, presence. Superman needs warmth, sincerity, hope. Spider-Man needs humor, heart, relatability. But Batman requires all of those things. Superman's emotional depth, Spider-Man's vulnerability, an action star's physicality, a dramatic star's range. And then he has to execute all of that behind a mask. But that's precisely why Batman feels different. The role isn't difficult because of one extreme demand. The role is difficult because of all of these demands existing simultaneously. So I want to ask you guys, as of right now, I know there have been some casting rumors going around and many fan casts have been put out into the world. Who would you cast as Batman today? You're put in charge of the DCU, you can cast Batman in the DCU. Are you moving Robert Pattinson over? Are you going with a popular fan cast like Jensen Ackles? What exactly are you doing? But more importantly, why? Is it the look? Is it the voice, the physicality, the experience? Let me know in the comments, because I think the reason why is actually usually more interesting than the actor themselves. But with all of that said, I want to move this over to a different side of the conversation that not a lot of people talk about. I think we understand that Batman is difficult to cast. It's an impossible role. But regardless, every 10 years when he gets recast, we always seem to care. Why? I mean, every casting announcement becomes an enormous event. Every new actor gets scrutinized. Every new performance and iteration gets debated. Why? I think it's because whenever somebody gets Batman right, something special happens. You stop seeing the actor. You stop thinking about casting and comparing them to the other iterations. For a few hours, they're simply Batman, a character embodying all of those things that we just talked about, taking us on an emotional journey that we're going to feel so attached to that you just can't break away. And interestingly, in these performances, the things that people most often remember are not the things that they were worried about going into it. It's not the muscles, not the jawline, it's not even the suit. It's usually the smaller moments, the detective work, the emotional scenes, the quiet moments where Bruce Wayne lets his guard down, the tangible feeling that beneath all of the mythology is a real, complex human being being. That's what makes Batman resonate. He's not just a superhero. He's a deep and incredibly complex character who's constantly fighting against his own limitations. And when an actor captures that unique balance, the strength and vulnerability, fear and compassion, myth and humanity, it creates an experience that's incredibly satisfying. Not because we're all enjoying a superhero movie, but because we're seeing one of the most layered characters brought to life. So to wrap it up in a bow, why is Batman so difficult to cast? It's because Hollywood's not just looking for someone who can fit in a suit. They're searching for someone who can convincingly combine physicality, action work, drama, presence, voice work, dual identities, and emotional depth, and tie it all into a single performance. That's incredibly rare. In short, it's difficult because they're not just casting any old superhero. They're trying to find someone who can convince millions of fans that they are Batman, one of the most layered and challenging roles in all of cinema. And I think we love it because we instinctively know that that is a gargantuan task that not everybody is up for, which is precisely why I am incredibly excited to see who James Gunn brings into the DCU, because I know whoever it is going to knock it out the park, and we're going to be able to see all of those wonderful things come to life. But thank you guys so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. But until next time, have a wonderful day.